Hey guys, welcome back. I got for you guys today episode 2 of Links to Literacy, and the book that we're going to be discussing today is The Devil and Karen Kingston. Now, this was a different pace for me because one, demonic possession terrifies me. Like the movies, anything that has to do with that just 100% terrifies me. So, this was definitely coming out of my comfort zone. And then also, this was allegedly, I'm putting it out there allegedly because I did a little digging, not too much, to try and find like sources of the things that they supposedly said happened and that they took to these supposed expert conventions, and I couldn't find anything at all. Maybe it's because they did specify that they did change the names of the people that participated in this, but also I figured there would be some kind of trace because I entered the convention's name, the association name, the foundation names, and I couldn't find anything. So we're gonna from for this video, we're just all going to say allegedly, okay? This book is allegedly a true story, something that truly happened to a poor 13-year-old girl. So let's get into it. So, title and author, The Devil and Karen Kingston, was written and supposedly, allegedly observed by Robert W. Pelton. Then we have the summary, and this is how I summarized the experience of this book. And as I wrote, Karen Kingston was a young girl who had a very rough start to life when she started to go through severe changes both mentally and physically. Enter a slew of religious practitioners who believed the 13-year-old girl was possessed by a demon, but they didn't expect that there might be more than one. Now, if what we're going based off of that, this is a true story, right? So they're saying that she was possessed, and they go into detail briefly about how they determined how they figured she was possessed. Kind of iffy for me, but I mean, I wasn't there. Who am I to say anything? But they were performing this exorcism, and it come to find out that this poor girl was allegedly possessed by not one, not two, not even three, but 13 different demons. Insanity. Insanity. It everything that this poor girl went through in this book broke my heart, and I it's just rough to imagine that her poor little psyche, emotions, body went through all these horrific changes, and just it was a wild ride. Next, we have our setting, which it didn't specify where in the country, if it took place in the country, if it took place overseas. It didn't specify that, but it did specify that the exorcism itself did happen in a home for. So, this little context. This book was published in like 76, 77, right? So the terminology that they use is not acceptable nowadays. It's not politically correct. It's a very offensive term, and I'm sure you guys, it's the R word, and I do not feel comfortable saying that word at all. So I'm not sure how to really describe it, but it's a home that they placed her in for the mentally challenged, let's say. When she gets turned over to the state and they put her in this home, she's how they describe is ultimately a vegetable. She cannot take care of herself. She cannot feed herself. She cannot clothe herself. She cannot go to the bathroom by herself. She has to have 24-hour care around the clock, which she was not like that before. She was how they described, a happy, playful little girl who smiled all the time, and then just all of a sudden these changes started coming over her. She stopped talking. She was essentially illiterate. And that also comes into play later on in the story, which I hate. Once again, this is a true, supposed, allegedly a true story. So I hate to say like, oh, this is my favorite part of the story, because what she goes through is horrific. But one of the parts that I don't want to say enjoyed either, one of the parts that really, I guess, resonated with me has to do with the handwriting. It was fascinating, and it was just truly fascinating to see how handwriting comes into play in this story. Next, we have the main characters. And once again, since this is a true story, it feels kind of icky for me to call them characters. So these are the main people who participated within this exorcism that was performed. We have Reverend Rogers, who was the leader and the person who performed the actual exorcism. Then we have Father John O. Tyson, who was an observer and sometimes assisted in this exorcism. Then we have Dr. W. Manley Fromay, who was an observer and also supervised the exorcism. Then we have Dr. Julian A. Pershing, who was an observer and also supervised. So they were the ones who kept track of her vitals, like took her blood pressure, her heart rate, everything to make sure that she was okay. Then we have Peggy Welsh, Carol Peterson, and Joyce Donaldson, who were all nurses who were also there to help make sure that Karen was being not being harmed in any way, making sure that she was okay for all intents and purposes. And one of them, they were there to make sure she was okay, but holy shit, she ended up not being okay. Then we have the author, Robert W. Pelton. He was also an observer. He was there to record the whole exorcism, and he also is apparently a handwriting expert. And then, of course, we have the poor 13-year-old girl, Karen Kingston, who is the possessed person. Now, like I said, I don't want to say that there's a favorite part in this book for me because it feels kind of icky to me because if this is a true story, like this poor girl went through some horrific, horrendous, terrible stuff, not only mentally, but psychologically, emotionally, physically. Some of the alleged physical changes that she went through before the exorcism, during the exorcism, were insane. I do not understand how a human body could do what her body supposedly did. But who's to say? Really, who's to say? The part that did indeed fascinate me was the whole handwriting aspect of it, and that's because Karen Kingston was allegedly illiterate. She didn't know how to read, she didn't know how to write. So, if that is the case and that is true, how did she write all this? How was that possible? There's different writing styles, there's different how like if she couldn't write, how could she write in cursive? And not only that, is that one of these demons was also illiterate. He didn't write anything. But then also there was one that just preferred to communicate in pictures aside from actually talking to the people involved in this. It was just fascinating to me because there are different, as you saw, there's different writing styles, and I understand people can write in different writing styles, totally understand that, but she was illiterate, so how? This leads this part kind of leans me more towards that this is actually a true story than anything else that happened in this book. Even the pictures, because there are pictures from this exorcism in the book. It's all throughout the book. Made me a little uncomfortable to see them, but then also they didn't provide me as much proof, like lead me to believe that this was a true story, because in the pictures, as you saw, you couldn't really see people's faces. It was like they were purposely hiding their faces. Weird to me, weird to me, weird to me, but it was still fascinating, the aspect of the handwriting and then the pictures. Now we have the moral of the story. Again, this was hard for me to find or to pull something out of it because it was a true story. And like I said, you could always pull stuff out of stories no matter what it is. And I understand that. Just the whole premise and everything that was going on in the story definitely kind of like didn't take me out of it, but it made me feel weird about saying certain things, or not saying certain things, but trying to pull something from the story. But I did pull something from the story, and maybe it's a moral, maybe it's not. You guys let me know what you think. But the moral of the story that I pulled out of here was that these people's faith were so strong that it called them to help this little girl that they felt needed their help so badly, because Karen Kingston was, from what they described her as, she was a vegetable. She could not move, she could not do anything to take care of herself. She needed 24-hour care. And these people felt like they had this calling from God to go and help her, to do some kind of good, to bring relief to this girl who was suffering so much. And to have that kind of calling from a religion, from any kind of deity that you may worship, that has to be a special kind of feeling, to feel that pull to do something good. And I'm not saying you need religion to feel that pull to do something good. People don't. A lot of people don't. But their faith in God and what they were doing, and how they believed wholeheartedly that they were going to pull every demon out of this little girl, all 13 of them, that they were going to pull out of her. And that was not humbling, but it was very, very interesting to see just how strong people's faiths can truly be in whatever deity or whatever they believe in. God, whatever, Allah, the universe, whatever have you. Like, that was very, very interesting to see the whole dynamic of that throughout this exorcism, because this obviously, it's an exorcism, so this is very, very, very Christian, Catholic, religious heavy in that. And if you're not cool with that, maybe skip this one. But yeah, it's very, very, their faith was very, very strong. The conclusion that I took away from this is that, once again, these people's faith did something good, called them to do something good, because at the end of it, she pulled through. They exorcised all 13 demons out of her. The Another fascinating thing that happened was, so at the beginning, Karen Kingston went through many physical changes. Her hair, which was long and luscious and soft, turned brittle and coarse, and just, it looked dead. And then she went cross-eyed, and then she had a gray film over her eyes. One of her legs, the knee was stiff and like could barely move. And then one of her legs, I believe it was her left leg, was shorter than the other, so she was limping. And then her shoulders would curve in, and she was hunched. And they described her hunch as like she looked like a hag. Like, the physical manifestations of these demons took a toll on that poor girl's body. It truly did. But then by the end of it, and when all 13 demons were gone and the exorcism was done, all of that was gone. Her hair, long, lustrous, like soft. It went back to the way it was. The film over her eyes was gone. Her eyes weren't crossed anymore. They also, before, her teeth just separated, her gums receded. Like, it was just a very, very startling change, and all that reversed, and she went back to looking like she did before, where none of these changes happened. Her legs were normal. They weren't stiff. They were even. It was crazy how these people's faith was so strong in God that they were able to pull these evil spirits out of this little girl and just better her life. Also, earlier in the book, they talked about how her IQ was like 34, 35 or something. Like, her IQ dropped. So essentially, she couldn't talk, nothing like that. But after everything succeeded, the demons were gone. They had to help her reassimilate into society, which consisted of sending her to school. So, well, not sending her to school because they couldn't do that yet, but they started schooling her, like homeschooling her, and they recorded how her IQ kept climbing and climbing and climbing, and how progressively throughout the years she started doing better in school. She started learning, she learned how to read, she learned how to write. She started at, I believe, like basic, like she had to learn how to read. And then by the time she was 16, she was ready to go to high school. She was on the same level as her peers, and nobody ever knew what happened to her and what she went through. She was just, after everything, after this whole ordeal, she lived her life like a normal. By the time this book ended, and her recovery was done, she was 16. So from 13 to 16, 3 years, massive, massive changes. And I have to say, the ending made me happy because a lot of these stories, granted, they're mostly through Hollywood and stuff, but a lot of these stories that you hear, the person that's being possessed and going through the exorcism, more times than not, they don't survive. Their bodies cannot take on the trauma that it goes through while doing these rituals. It's it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm trying to be as sensitive as I can because if this is a true story, this is something that a little girl actually went through. And the way that they describe the things that she went through, she was belching and these noxious odors would come through her. She's spitting up these like steaming piles of bile and just spit. And then at one point in one of these demons, her body just swole up and like at first it started in her belly and it made her look like she was pregnant, and then her whole body just started stretching, and like she ballooned up to a point where they said that she looked red and just massively swollen. And that when that demon was gone and everything went down and they were like cleaning her up and they were making her as comfortable as possible, they said that the only evidence that they found that convinced them that what happened to her happened was that she had stretch marks on her body. Can you imagine seeing something like that? I never want to see something like that. Please, I don't want to imagine it. This was enough. This 100% was enough. Yeah, enough. Now we have, was this book easy to read? Was it just right to read? Was it hard to read? Was it too hard to read? For me, this book was just right. It was perfect. It was easy to follow. The descriptions of everything that was going on, how people were talking, how apparently they were feeling in the moment was very easy to follow. It was just easy to follow. It wasn't hard. There was not so many technical terms in any of this from the doctors that you had to look up. A lot of the religious stuff they go into, like she starts speaking fluent Latin and then they translate it for you. The only things that you, well, I'm not going to say you, but like some people might have to look up are the Bible verses that are being referenced in here, because they give you the book, the chapter, and the line. I believe that's how you read that, but they don't give you the full passage most of the time. They're assuming that you already know it. But that's really the only thing that kind of like you would have to research a little bit if you need to. Once again, not everybody needs to. There are a lot of people who know their Bible front to back, and I love that for you guys. Not all of us do. But yeah, it was just right to read. It wasn't hard. It's a not fun. It's a good read to read this time of year. It's eerie, it's spooky. I wouldn't say it's scary. It didn't scare me. My imagination scared me more than anything, but it's definitely the perfect book for this time of year or any time of year for you horror fans. I highly recommend it. I truly do. It was an experience. It was an experience, and I'm definitely keeping this book for my collection. I don't know if I'll ever read it again, but it read it. Especially if you read, it's only like 224 pages, so some people can knock it out in one day. You could read it for the week of Halloween if you want, maybe next year. But yeah, all in all, great read. It was a lot. It was a lot if you consider that this was a true story. My heart breaks for that little girl throughout most of it, and then at the end, I am just elated that she is okay. Well, that's all I got for you guys for this episode. Let me know, do you think it's a true story? Is there anything that you took away from this that you could possibly convince you to read this? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, stay awesome and stay safe.